I'd like to welcome you to today's episode of our podcast. We've been going through looking at the seasons of life as Solomon began to describe them in Ecclesiastes chapter number 3. And so we're going to look at this, understanding the emotional seasons in your life. Before we dive into our topic, just want to give you a quick word of announcement. For anybody who works with young adults, college ministry, campus ministry, whatever umbrella you want to put all that ministry under, or just maybe even have just a burden for that age group, we have a new resource called the Collegians for Christ Leadership Podcast. It will come out every other week beginning on July 15th with conversations, resources geared towards everything college ministry related. So just want to give you a word about that in case you work with this age group or you know anybody who does. You can share that with them. Our first episode will feature our special guest, Joel Norris, who is the young adult director at Franklin Road Baptist Church, and he shares some great insight that God has given him, and as he's experienced and really been able to see the ministry grow there at Franklin Road Baptist. So just you can subscribe there through Apple, through Spotify, any of the major podcasting platforms, or you can go over to our YouTube channel. We'll also have the live recorded videos where we did the interviews and conversations. So just pray that'll be a help to you. But as we dive back into our topic, this is today and Thursday will be our last days as we look at this seasonal kind of idea of events and circumstances in our lives. So do you know people who are emotional? It doesn't take them much to cry. You can watch just a movie, a Hallmark movie, and it could almost just have a little bit of emotion. Next thing you know, you see tears coming out of their eyes, or their eyes all water up and start to flow. Maybe it's a sappy movie, or maybe some heartbreaking story, but it just doesn't take them much. You maybe even call them an emotional basket case. You may say, oh, I'm like that. Are you calling me an emotional? No. But maybe that's a way we would refer to people who are emotional. And so sometimes we typically think of an emotional person as someone who maybe cries or gets sad quick and easy. But we need to understand our emotions go far beyond just the emotions of crying or sadness. There are numerous emotions that you and I can feel every single day in our lives, numerous times a day. And so we are emotional beings. Why is that? We're created in the image of God, and God is an emotional being. And because we bear His image, we're His image bearers, we possess the free will to make decisions. We possess the emotions that you and I feel based on our feelings, based on circumstances that come up in life, based on the way other people interact or treat us, and so forth. And so there are specific emotions for specific situations in life. And so you and I will encounter those. If you want to know how many emotions there are, you can search and research, and you'll find anywhere from 7 all the way up to 34 basic emotions that us as humans will feel. And then there's a conglomeration of those being combined that I saw somebody said up to 34,000 different combinations of emotions that you and I can feel as human beings. But just to give you a quick rundown, here's some of the emotions that you and I can experience in our life. The first one is admiration, then adoration, aesthetic appreciation, amusement, anxiety, awe, awkwardness, boredom, calmness, confusion, craving, disgust, empathetic, entrancement, envy, excitement, right? Fear, horror, interest, joy, nostalgia, romance, sadness, satisfaction, sexual desire, sympathy, and triumph. Now, some of those I identify with quick and say, yes, I feel those. The nostalgia, I didn't even really think about that as being an emotion, but how many times do you get nostalgic, reflecting back over pictures and events in the back, and you spend 30 minutes or an hour, 2 hours just reminiscing, and you get all this kind of nostalgic feeling? That's an emotion that you and I feel. And so there's a lot of feelings or emotions that can range from one emotional spectrum all the way to the exact opposite. And then there's emotions that feel everything in between. As we consider these emotions that you and I experience in life, Solomon wrote about those as being seasons of our life, that emotions can be seasons. He says here in Ecclesiastes 3, verse number 4, he says there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. So let me back up just in case you're jumping in with us for the first time. He says in verse 1, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And then it begins to go down and list all these comparisons: a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. We looked at that in our previous episode. Now he says there's a time to weep and a time to laugh. a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. And then he says a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. So here's what Solomon had to say. So first, there are seasonal emotions. Just like some people may get seasonal allergies, maybe that's you. You go to a certain place and that place causes you to have an allergic reaction. You get stuffed up and so forth. Just like we may have seasonal allergies that come in quick and preferably they go out quick. We have these emotions that are seasonal that come into our life. Many times they come in and they're gone just as fast as they came in. They're short-lived. So the idea that our emotions are seasonal is what Solomon is teaching here. He tells us there's times and purposes for this, to weep and to laugh. Think about how far apart those two emotions are, meaning when you're weeping, the last thing on your mind is the thoughts of laughter. And when you're laughing at the joke or you're caught up in the laughter of the moment, the last thing on your mind is that of weeping. Then he goes on to say there's a time to mourn and a time to dance or celebrate. And so when you're mourning a terrible loss, the last thing on your mind is celebration. And when you're celebrating, who on earth really wants to go and mourn? Now, we understand circumstances of life and the people that we interact with all cause these different emotions to come into our lives. Now, how many times have you thought or said this? I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why my eyes are filling up with water. I don't know why I'm crying. I think they're happy tears. And you can't really explain the emotions that are coming in. You don't know why they're there. Or maybe you have this emotional reaction because of some person said something or something happened, but it really was not them. It was not that specific event. It was everything else preceding that. But that was just the one little thing that kind of puts you over the edge. And those emotions come boiling up and come spilling out in your life. You see, we experience these certain emotions really, I don't want to necessarily say unwelcomed, but maybe surprised. They come in our life and we don't expect them. We can't control them. Why? Because they're seasonal. And just as the seasons of our life cannot be controlled, some of the emotions of our lives cannot be controlled. We looked at the fact that we can control some seasons and some seasons of life we cannot control. So just as seasons come and go, our emotions come and go. Now, there's some emotions that are out of our control. Think about fear. Something happens, you experience a situation or you see something and fear comes in. You can't stop it. You can't control it. Or sadness, maybe you experience a terrible breakup or the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job or something of that nature, and sadness comes in. You can't control it coming in. Maybe boredom or anxiety comes into your life. But then there's certain seasons or emotions, rather, that we can control. Envy is one that was listed. Now, you and I maybe not can control it initially happening, but we can control whether we're going to be envious or feel it. Joy. Remember, happiness is based on circumstances, but joy is not. And so you and I can make the decision or control the emotion of joy, interest, excitement. We can decide if we're going to be excited about something or someone. And so we may all think that we would like to be happy 24/7, just to be happy and smiling all the time. But I thought about this. Could we really be this way? Or would us be happy and smiling 24/7 cause us not to realize we're even happy? Not to even understand what that emotion feels like, because we always feel the same. And I think that's it. God brings seasons into our life because variety is the spice of life. He understands if we stayed one way all the time, we would never experience or feel all these other feelings and emotions that He Himself, based on His character, does and is. So we feel the power of emotions in our lives all the time, and emotions are powerful. I mean, they cause people to react, to cry, to scream, to run, to hide. I mean, you think about the emotions you feel when they come into your life, man, they're powerful, and they're powerful motivators that cause us to do stuff. But without these emotions, life would be very boring, and life could be very numb. And so God is an emotional being. And since He is an emotional being and we're created in His image, guess what? You and I are emotional beings, and it's okay. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to not understand why the emotions are coming in. It's okay not to be able to explain why you feel a certain way, because many times those emotions are seasonal. and they're coming in outside of your control, and you can't do anything about it but experience them, work through them, think through them, and talk through some of the emotions that you're feeling. And so we feel and experience emotions on a very real level, and they affect us, as I said, in a very powerful, powerful way. But that's how God ordained it. Think about that. This is God's way. God desires for you to have the ups and the downs, not because he's mean or anything like that, but because the interactions in life cause those emotions to go up and down. God feels the same. Every emotion that you feel, God feels. Every emotion that you and I feel, Jesus Christ felt personally as he walked on this earth. So he has not experienced or felt an emotion that you have not felt or experienced. And so how should you and I handle the emotional seasons of our life? Well, we should embrace this emotional season that you find yourself in. Whatever season that in, whether it's happy, sadness, laughter, mourning, just embrace it because it's a season. And be glad that it's a season, right? Whether it's only for a moment, a day, a week, a month. And then enjoy the emotional season you find yourself in because it will change quickly.